We've got Mel plus LeBron set for the stretch run. Does he need to do less for the Lakers to do more? Doris is back with us. And then, deal or no deal? Dallas and Dak fast reaching the point of no return. Is it possible the Cowboys have other plans? We've got answers to those and other questions as we get up with you, starting right now. Delighted that you've gotten up with us here. Hope you had, many of you, a nice long weekend. If you were not with us yesterday, you missed Doris Burke, who's back with us today. Acho is losing his mind over here. So we are excited to have that. And we are also very excited to have the exclusive reveal of Mel Kiper Jr.'s brand new mock draft 2.0, hot off the presses. And here we go. No movement at the top. Joe Burrow, whether he likes it or not, is still #1 to the Bengals after his historic season at LSU. And he may not like it. We'll talk about that as we continue. Meanwhile, how do you like this? Tua Tagovailoa moving up in this mock from #5 to the Dolphins all the way up to 3 to the Lions, who currently say they're not shopping Matthew Stafford, but there is buzz that they like Tagovailoa. Miami, of course, still wants a quarterback at 5, so Mel has them taking Justin Herbert there, meaning he's got 3 quarterbacks in the top 5 of the mock draft, which has just been released. Rounding out that top 5, you see here the top 10. Chase Young is in there. Jeff Okudah going 4 to the Giants. Bottom half, you see a lot of offensive and defensive linemen. Perhaps most notably, Clemson's do-it-all linebacker Isaiah Simmons going 9 to the Jaguars. And here he is, Mel Kiper Jr. is with us live. And again, revealing the second mock draft. So the name that stands out, of course, is Tua at #3. And I read through your notes here. Your sense of whether or not it is Detroit that takes him, or do you think there's action in that spot?
Could be, Grady. That's the thing. If you want to get ahead of Miami, obviously the Lions are at 3. Think about the Giants at 4. There's opportunities for the Giants to move down, still get an offensive lineman, and certainly for the Detroit Lions, pick up some additional picks and move down, still get a very good player. So I think you look at those possibilities there, but certainly Matthew Stafford's future will obviously depend on whether the Lions would look at 2 at 3, and then certainly Miami. Would they be aggressive if they want Tua rather than Herbert? What happens there, Grady? So it's really going to get down to the evaluation process, and we're still a long way away from April 23rd. How do these teams feel about Tua with the medical? We'll know a lot more by then regarding medical, and Herbert, whether you can transform what we saw in terms of the inconsistency, but he has the great talent. Can you mold him into a big-time quarterback? Those are the decisions that will impact the top 5 of the draft.
Let's talk more about Herbert for a moment here, because the few things that we've had a chance to see since the season ended, primarily the Senior Bowl, all went very well. What has he shown you in recent weeks to move up to #5?
He's really a guy who, talent-wise, Green, at the quarterback position, has everything you want. And he's a tremendously intelligent young man. Instinctive ability as a quarterback, seeing the field, making good decisions, all those things. Will it all come together? The system at Oregon, coming into the NFL, will he be better served as a pro? And to really straighten out those areas where you don't see that wow factor in a game where we saw it running, we've seen it passing some, but we haven't had that defining moment. We never had that really for a kid who has all that talent. And I think for Justin Herbert, if it does all come together in the NFL and you roll the dice that it will, you could hit big. I think obviously there's a bust factor there, as there are with most quarterbacks. But with Herbert, he's one of the polarizing figures. Some people really love him, and some people are skeptical. So I think he still goes in the top 5 overall.
And so again, being 3rd or 5th in the draft is hardly falling. But before this season began, it was a Herbert-Tua conversation. And now here's Joe Burrow, the clear-cut #1 pick. What separates him in your mind from the other 2 guys?
There's no issues. Then people say, well, he was a 1-year guy. But he played 2 years. He didn't play horribly 2 years ago. He was solid. He wasn't great. It all came together under Joe Brady coming over there. But I think from the Saints and bringing in that offense. But I think the fact that Tua has the medical, if it wasn't for that, Greeny, there would be a discussion at #1. Herbert, if he would have had that wow moment or 2 overall from quarter 1 to quarter 4, both passing and running, then he would have been locked in. Some people think he should still be the first quarterback off the board. So there's a lot of debate there, Greeny, but I think Burrow is solidly the consensus #1 guy. Tua would be if it wasn't for the medical, and Herbert's one that everybody's all over the place on. Nobody really knows for sure. One thing you do know for sure about Herbert, he's got big-time talent. If you handle him properly, a lot of people think he could be a quality NFL starting quarterback.
It's great to see you, Mel. And again, the Mock Draft 2.0 is available right now on ESPN.com as we work our way towards the draft, which is now 2 months away. And Laura, obviously the Tua piece of this at number 3 is what everyone is talking about.
Right, and the health, as we continue to hear from everybody, and everything I'm hearing out of Tua's camp and everybody that's associated with this is that it's tracking very well. But to Mel's point, we're not going to know exactly what's happening until we get closer and closer to the draft, and the health is the most important thing. But Mr. T, as we look at that number 3 spot, let's take the idea that action could be involved there. And maybe it's just the Lions that make that pick. If you are in charge of making this pick, is it better long-term to draft Tua or to go more toward the short term and get somebody else?
Yeah, this draft starts at 3, Laura, no doubt about it. And here's what's going on in Detroit right now. Long-term, turn in the card, it's Tua. Obviously, incredibly well-talented. However, what you're selling the Ford family, if you're Bob Quinn, their general manager, Matt Patricia, the head coach, is, hey, we were 3-4-1 with a healthy Matt Stafford. We lost 2 games by 5 points to Kansas City and Green Bay. And with a healthy Matt Stafford, we're tracking really well. So it's an incredible juxtaposition. Short term, to survive, they're better off taking Jeff Okudah, the talented quarterback out of Ohio State. But long term, if you're operating this franchise like you're the owner, you take Tua because the upside's so compelling, and that's what's going on in Detroit right now.
Graz, the other piece of this, I'm sorry, but let's just get everything on the table. The other piece of this is if you're Detroit, trading out of the spot and trying to amass other good players that you could get. Who's looking to move up there? If they're looking to move out, who's moving up?
Anybody who's looking for quarterback, and we've gone through the teams. Miami, obviously sitting there at 5 with multiple first-round picks as well. The Chargers, the Panthers, I mean, just top of my head. But, I mean, anybody who's looking to get up there and get a quarterback that isn't Joe Burrow is going to have to get to 3 to make sure that, you know, the Dolphins don't take their guy instead.
Yeah, Tua is that good. Let's remember, I think at 3, 2 things are going to happen. The Lions are either going to trade Matthew Stafford and acquire Tua, or they're going to trade that pick, and Tua will go at 3 because you can't be prisoners of the moment. Even with Tua's injuries, he still had 9 more touchdowns than Joe Burrow over the last 2 years and the same number of interceptions in 4 less starts. So if Tua's not hurt, I don't know that it's a question of who goes number 1. I think Tua still goes number 1 because I think people escape the bondage of the moment and realize Tua's actually a transcendent type of quarterback as well. So I think it's unequivocally certain that Tua goes at number 2.
I got to challenge that, though. That's a big if. And with Tua, he's been hurt 3 times. So if I'm sitting there and I'm trying to do what's best for my franchise, that's a huge if about him being healthy because he's had 3 lower body injuries. And when you get to the pro level where they're bigger and faster, that's a huge concern.
The thing for me is when I looked at the stats, Mike T, and I was like, you know what, let me break out of just, again, the bondage of this moment and everything Joe Burrow did. If you look at it, even with Tua's injuries, remember what he was able to accomplish. So even if you factor in that he might miss 2 games, and in a 17-game NFL season, 16 real games, he might only play 14. That's still doing more than if you acquire a guy who does stay perfectly healthy but isn't as good.
Let's have some fun with this because why not? If the Lions do decide to take him at number 3, that puts Matthew Stafford in play, who's a lot younger than you think he is, and oh, by the way, was having a sneaky, fantastic season last year before he got hurt. So who is calling them like crazy to get Matthew Stafford?
Well, again, we're looking at teams that need quarterbacks, right? Does Tampa Bay get interested if they've decided to move on from Jameis Winston? Is New England interested if Tom Brady is going to... What? Tom Brady's not going to leave?
This is what's going to happen. Okay, I'm telling you right now,
this is crazy.
there's only one hard, fast rule in everything, and that is that whatever winds up happening with this Tom Brady thing, it's going to be bad for the Jets. And that's what's going to happen.
I get it.
The Patriots are going to move on from Brady. They're going to trade nothing for Matthew Stafford, and they're going to wind up winning 3 more championships in the next 10 years. That's what's going to happen.
What's interesting about that is if you put Matt Stafford with the Patriots and you drafted the quarterbacks in the AFC East, Matt Stafford's the best quarterback.
And it's not even close.
Yeah, absolutely. And
We've gone way down some hypothetical roads here. I mean,
yes. I've been a Jet fan for 50 years. I've been down a lot worse roads than that.
We don't have any indication Detroit wants to trade Matthew Stafford. Quite the opposite. When a report came out last week saying that they might, the general manager said it was 100% false. So,
but where there's smoke, there's fire.
I get it. Look, everyone's lying. I get it. Everyone's lying all the time this time of year, especially around the draft, especially about the draft. But if Detroit's going to do this, we're going to know soon because they're going to have to do it before the league year starts. Otherwise, the dead money cap hit starts to go up into crazy high territory. Even now, if they trade him, they're eating $21 million on the cap. It would be a total reset for Detroit immediately, which would go against everything that we heard out of there late last year about bringing back the coach and the GM and making another run. So it would represent a change of plans on a significant level for the Detroit Lions to do this.
But again, what's interesting about that, if you're the Ford family and you are entrusting Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, that's what's best for your franchise for the next 10 years, and that's what they should do.
Of course, because we know the Lions historically have always made the right call in every circumstance. That's why they've been such a dominant powerhouse over the last half century. What's next?
We got to get past the Jets here. Okay, according to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Joe Burrow said during a reception in Fort Worth in which he accepted the Davey O'Brien Award, quote, "I do have leverage." So as we continue to talk about these quarterbacks in this draft, a lot of people think, why would Joe Burrow have leverage at that number 1 spot? This is what he said further on. "I do have leverage, have their process, the Bengals do, and I have my process. We haven't even gotten to the NFL Combine yet. There's a lot of things that happen leading up to the draft and a lot of information gathered." So Adam Schefter's been here and said, put it on the bottom line. Joe Burrow's going number 1 to the Bengals. He's now saying that he has leverage. Mr. T, does he have leverage?
He has zero leverage. This hasn't happened since 2004 when Eli Manning orchestrated a trade from the Chargers to the Giants. He has zero leverage.
I don't agree. I'll tell you why. To be clear, I understand that he doesn't have literal leverage, but he has figurative leverage. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, and again, if he really does want to engineer an Eli Manning and get himself out of there, he's going about it all wrong.
Correct.
This is something that needs to be done very quietly behind closed doors, where he goes to them and says, look, I don't want to be here. And if you're the Bengals, do you want the guy if he desperately doesn't want to be there? So you allow them to engineer a trade where they get a boatload of picks and they look like they win and got what they wanted in this thing. That's the leverage he has.
But Greeny, I see it differently. Here's why. When you draft a player, you have his rights for 5 years, so you have plenty of time to work through that. It's not like a free agency situation. And if you think he's the best player and he's the best fit, you take him. And then as an organization, you work really hard to win him over day by day. So I know it's not the ideal situation, but if you believe Joe Burrow is the best player, you take him and then you work on it.
Here's what I think everybody's forgetting, though, Greeny. Burrow's last name is Burrow. It's not Manning. Manning had leverage inherently because that last name grants you leverage, both with Peyton and obviously with Archie. What Burrow isn't saying is actually what speaks all the volumes. You're the number 1 pick, guaranteed the number 1 pick should be, barring anything crazy. You say, I'm eager to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I can't wait to get there. They're about to throw you a boatload of money and guarantee it. But Burrow's sitting here saying things like, I have leverage. He seems very non-committal, not good at all.
He's also a kid from Southeast Ohio.
Right.
I mean, this was very surprising from the standpoint of the ties that we know he already has there.
I think Joe Burrow is going to be the number 1 pick, and I think the Bengals are going to be the team that takes him, and I think he's going to play for them. I believe Adam Schefter, and he's got sources that go beyond mine. Mine are telling me there's no reason to be scared off of this story about Burrow going number 1. It is 2 months until the draft. It is lying and deceit season. The Bengals are allowed by rule to sign Joe Burrow right now. That's if you have the number 1 pick, you can do that. But the league hates that. They wouldn't want to do that. They want to go to Vegas and have the commissioner stand up there and say, with the number 1 pick and everybody. So you're just going to hear more and more. On the day of the draft last year, there were sources that were calling and telling you, Arizona likes Quinnen Williams. They might take a number. It was pure bull. Right. And people went with it. But that's the way it goes.
I get all of that. I'm in no way suggesting that this isn't going to happen. I was merely addressing the notion that he doesn't have leverage. If he doesn't want to be there, and it doesn't sound like he does, because to your point, Nacho, if he wanted to be there, there's nothing prohibiting him from saying, I can't wait, this is my dream, exactly. I grew up there. So he doesn't sound like he wants to be there, and frankly, why would he want to be there?
There's nothing prohibiting him unless he's in on the gag, right? Like, hey, let's nobody say anything. Let's not act like it's all said and done.
I don't think that's it, Graf. I think he's looking.
I'm allowed to have my theory.
He's looking at his career, and yes, you are obviously, but he's looking at his career and realizes it's not how you start, it's how you finish. If he goes to Cincinnati, a situation that is clearly in a ton of mess and disarray, it will not go well for him.
Okay, so we will have much more football as the morning continues, but you just used the words a total mess and disarray, and that pretty much describes the state of Major League Baseball as we speak, where yesterday it was the theater of the absurd. Carlos Correa may have inadvertently created another controversy for the Houston Astros over the weekend when he told MLB Network that part of the reason Jose Altuve didn't want his jersey ripped was because of a bad tattoo. Altuve came to Correa's defense yesterday.
When did you get your tattoo?
When? Middle of the season in San Francisco.
How many sessions did it take to finish the tattoo?
So, the tattoo. As for his tattoo, reporters in the clubhouse yesterday saw a shirtless Altuve with a tattoo that read Melanie. And in this photo, taken in the 2019 World Series, you can sort of make out the M near his left collarbone. So perhaps Correa was telling the truth. Perhaps this is where we are now in Major League Baseball as spring training gets underway. Here's Jeff Passan from West Palm Beach, whose, by the way, column was brilliant. If you want to get caught up on literally everything going on in this, go to ESPN.com and read his column. But Jeff, you were in the clubhouse when Jose Altuve revealed the tattoo. Can you describe that moment for our audience?
Greeny, what are we doing? We're talking about a grown man's tattoo.
but
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, tell everyone what happened. He walked out shirtless.
Yeah, I'm like 24 hours removed from this, and it still kills me. He walks out into the clubhouse. He takes his shirt off. It's clear what he's doing. I mean, it is abundantly clear. He walks by us. He turns around, and we see Melanie with a heart. It's his daughter's name. It's like a really sweet thing. And then he puts his shirt on and he walks right back out of the clubhouse. Like, it was clear what he was doing at this point. He was just trying to show, yes, guys, I have a tattoo. No, Carlos wasn't lying. Yes, this whole thing is patently ridiculous.
Yes, I mean, that is the one thing upon which everyone can agree. Now, let's talk about the way players around the sport continue to deal with this. So many of them sounding off on the Astros and on Major League Baseball, including Justin Turner, an opponent of the Astros in the 2017 World Series. Here's what he said.
I mean, I don't know if the commissioner's ever won anything in his life. Maybe he hasn't, but the reason every guy is in this room, the reason every guy is, working out all offseason and showing up to camp early and putting in all the time and effort is specifically for that trophy, which, by the way, is called the Commissioner's Trophy. So for him to devalue it the way he did yesterday is just tells me how out of touch he is with the players in this game. And, at this point, the only thing devaluing that trophy is that it says Commissioner on it.
They cheated, and, it's tough. You're taking the trophy away, taking the rings away. I think they should definitely do something. To cheat like that and not get anything, it's sad to see.
So again, that second person you saw there is Mike Trout, who very rarely comments on practically anything, and he was very open in his criticism yesterday of the commissioner and of the Astros. What is your reaction, Jeff, to all of this conversation that does not feel like it's going away?
No, it's not going away, and it's not going away. There are going to be different layers here. I think we're sort of getting to the apex of players coming out and saying what they say and having these hot opinions on it. I think eventually it's going to start shifting toward the fact that there's going to be discipline for the Boston Red Sox next week for their alleged cheating in 2018. And Alex Cora is probably going to get a pretty significant suspension. And then he and Carlos Beltran are both going to have their stories to tell. And then we're going to start games, and guys are going to be getting hit by pitches. And this whole thing is going to go on and on and on. And it's all against the backdrop, Greeny, of this significant criticism of the commissioner, Rob Manfred. And this has spun out of control right now. Major League Baseball wants to wrangle it. The Major League Baseball Players Association wants everyone to stop fighting. But this is just a problem that is not going away.
All right, Jeff Passan, extraordinarily well done. Again, I strongly recommend the column he has up on ESPN.com to catch you up on all of this mess in baseball, and we'll check in with you again soon. Thank you. Meanwhile, many of you, I'm sure yesterday, were watching the Daytona 500, and I can update you on the condition of Ryan Newman, the driver, who is in serious condition after a frightening crash during the final lap yesterday, but NASCAR says the injuries are not life-threatening. He went into the outside wall after getting clipped from behind. The car flips and rolls, hit on the driver's side. The car was on fire as it skidded to a stop. Crews rushed to remove the 42-year-old Newman from the car. He was taken to Halifax Health Medical Center in Daytona Beach. Our Ryan McGee was on the scene in Daytona. He has the latest.
Greeny, there is no update on Ryan Newman's condition past what we learned from NASCAR on Monday night, which was that Ryan Newman's injuries were not life-threatening. It's interesting, and it was an interesting sociology experiment on Monday night in this Twitterverse that we live in now. A 2-hour gap between the end of the race and that official announcement, and people filled that gap with anger at Joe Gibbs Racing and Denny Hamlin for celebrating a Daytona 500 victory. We were standing right next to Joe Gibbs in victory lane. He refused to celebrate until he had a Ryan Newman update, and then once he learned they were still cutting Ryan Newman out of the race car, they shut it down. They celebrated no more. apologized for the fact that they celebrated at all, and I didn't think they had to.
All right, Ryan, thank you for that. Denny Hamlin won the race, and he tweeted after hearing the update on Newman's condition, "First and foremost, I want to give well wishes and prayers to Ryan Newman. I had absolutely no idea of the severity of the crash until I got to Victory Lane. There's very little communication after the finish. I had already unhooked my radio. It's not anyone's fault," and he sends up prayers. Again, if there's a further update on the condition of Ryan Newman, we will certainly pass it along. Meanwhile, we are just getting started this morning here on Get Up. Still to come, the good news for Dak Prescott is he will have answers to his future with the Cowboys in the next month. The bad news is he doesn't have those answers now. We have the very latest on the Cowboys QB. And LeBron James is on pace for a career low in minutes, but it still might be too much. Doris Burke will tell you why as we continue just getting started. It's Get Up